Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Veil, a podcast on psychic protection, spiritual hygiene, and navigating the ebbs and flows of the healing journey as you learn to master both your sovereign and shadow selves. My name is Lauren on Earth, your host, and today we are going to do a Q&A. So a couple questions that have come through the group chat on a wide range of topics. I'm recording this a little bit early. It's May 3rd, and this comes out on May 20th. And the reason for that is because I'm getting ready to leave Tulum for the season. I'm spending half my time in the States and half my time in Europe. But before that, I'm headed back to the Amazon. So by the time this comes out, you will have known where I've been, back to Colombia, back to the jungle to do another ayahuasca retreat. And I've been keeping this secret until I arrive or until I leave. I'm not too sure yet. And I'm not really sure the reason for that. Obviously, as you guys know, this will be my third in 6 months. It's been a lot. I really do feel like I need a break, but I know that I need to continue the work because I'm still clearing her energy out of me and it's still affecting my health. And so I know that this needs to happen. And this is something that I just need to put my big girl pants on and find the strength within me to go back and go through another round of clearing. And back in February, when I was sitting with the Yawanawa and kind of realizing, oh, okay, there is actually a lot more. The message was 5 more ceremonies and it's done. And I at first was going to kind of split up those 5 between 2 retreats, 3 ceremonies and 3 ceremonies over throughout the course of the year. So one in July, one in December. But after conversation with a friend and just kind of looking at, the different timelines, it made more sense for me to do this now rather than continue to carry her and go through another 8 months or so of dealing with these health issues. Even though I've been feeling tired, not necessarily tired in my day to day, but tired of feeling sick, tired of seeing darkness, tired of, some of these violent ceremonies. And I just want to be done, but I know that that's coming and it just makes more sense for me to, on my way back to the States and everything that I have planned for this summer, to get another layer of this out of me. Hopefully it's the end. So we'll see. I definitely will have more to report back in the next episode I'll record once I get back to Denver. So that's just my little update for now. Let's get into the Q&A. Okay, the first question is on the moon and what I think is going on up there. And I think people are very confused by the moon. I know that I am. There's a mystery for sure. I feel like we don't really know what's going on there, or our intuition isn't fully clear. There are so many theories. I feel like for many of us, we want to fully embrace the moon, but something maybe holds us back slightly, or there's a little bit of a disconnect or a fear. Is that societal fear, or is that our intuition speaking clearly to us? And I went down the moon rabbit hole several years ago. And the message I got, which honestly I was happy with and kind of dropped it after that, was that regardless of if it's fake or not, if it was placed by another or galactics to stir up more emotions or, create chaos, because a lot of us can feel that come up during the changing of the waning and waxing of the moon and the tides. But what a blessing that is to support us and give us this opportunity to feel more deeply. So in other words, regardless of the intention behind something, you can always choose to look at the positives. So instead of the moon is artificial and it makes me feel crazy, it's the moon stirs up these deep emotions within me, and what a blessing to be able to bring them to the surface. Without the moon, maybe that wouldn't happen. And not only the emotions, but also the cycles of the moon that are in tandem with the cycles of a woman's body. So in the group chat, we were talking about how many different groups have worked with and worshiped the moon, both with pure and ill intent over time. This goes back to ancient times. And this is true, and it's still true today. There are absolutely people unknowingly and unintentionally doing some black magic, witchy type rituals during the full and new moon. Do I think that the moon has something artificial about it? Yes. Do I believe it's completely natural? No. Do I believe we actually landed on the moon? No. Do I believe the moon is hollow? Yeah, I do. I've been there. So I've seen something, and there's stuff that goes on inside the moon. Do I believe there are galactic bases on the moon? Yes, I've seen those as well. Who? The Anunnaki, the Greys, the reptilians all have bases on the moon. So the Anunnaki planet, Nibiru, takes this really funky orbit where the planet gets picked up by the gravitational pull of the sun on Sirius for some time, then makes its way out and eventually is picked up by our sun coming into our solar system. And this happens every 3,000 years or so. And one of the things about the Anunnaki and this planet, and the theory is that when Sirius was ascending, the Anunnaki planet did not, so they got spun out of orbit. And now their planet is in this weird orbit. It is in darkness for a long period of time. Only when it gets picked up by both suns is there light and resources, which is why they make such an effort to make sure they can take as many resources as possible when their planet is in our solar system. So there are some things that took place during their time in our solar system over our history. And some of those things include the intervention of the seeding of Homo sapiens. So again, like I talked about in the last episode, the Anunnaki breeding program, when Earth flipped on its axis. So during the Ice Age, that was also Atlantis times. They also did land in Atlantis other times as well, because again, this is only a 3,000 year cycle. So multiple times of being present in Atlantis. And also there were Anunnaki souls that were, on Earth in their form and in human form. This is just their home planet that's in the vicinity. They established military bases on Mars, the moon, Mesopotamia, which we know is their civilization, Egypt, the birth of Christ, shocking, and 2012 most recently. So we can see, we went a little bit off topic there, but just to see, yes, there was a point in time where they made sure that while they were in orbit, they settled on the moon and on Mars and on Earth. So the moon represents the feminine. As we know, there's a war on the feminine. So yeah, it makes sense that they would want to have their hand in the moon as well. And if you took my dark feminine class, you'll know I described Lilith, Kali, Sekhmet, Mary, all of them as moon goddesses. And the myth is that the dragon mother gave birth to many moon goddesses. And in these ancient practices and traditions, the moon was and still is connected to the womb. And their job as these moon goddesses was really to bring down the spirit power from the other world and the unseen dimensions and the moon, and to embody and transmit its power to be felt on this earth. And I believe, again, this is why these dark forces had a desire to anchor into this energy, to use it for their benefit and to disrupt these rituals and what was going on with the the goddess work. So there are some theories out there on where the moon came from. I'll share a couple of those first, and then I'll share mine. So one, a meteor hitting the planet and the moon was formed from that. There's another that I hear a lot where the planet hit Earth, or a planet hit Earth, and the moon was formed from that collision. Mine's a little different, and take it with a grain of salt. I'm not claiming anything as truth. This is just what I feel and what I received. And when I was preparing for this, because I'm like, okay, I'm going to finally tell my theory on the moon, which I have not done before. And I'm like, are we really going to put this out there? Definitely something vulnerable about it, but I honestly popped the question into Google and the response made me feel like maybe I'm onto something here. So, backing up a little bit, I know that the Pleiadians came to Earth first after the Lyran Wars. So, as refugees looking for a new home, and they came to Earth and they felt like life was and the elements were a little bit too harsh for them, so they left. I still can understand how, even void of this theory, that it could be. But I believe that the moon was placed by extraterrestrials or other forms of consciousness, and it wasn't something that just like naturally happened necessarily. So I believe that in order to make Earth more hospitable for humans to thrive and survive, the moon was placed for that reason, to support that when it was time to populate the Earth. So when I popped the question into Google, which was just, does the moon make Earth a more livable planet? And the answer verbatim is, the brightest and largest object in our night sky, the moon makes Earth a more livable planet by moderating our home planet's wobble on its axis, leading to a relatively stable climate. It also causes tides, creating a rhythm that has guided humans for thousands of years. So again, maybe I'm onto something. My theory: the moon was placed by galactics. Maybe it happened in an organic, orchestrated way, but it was orchestrated. And it's not natural in the sense that it happened organically, but it's not unnatural either. So we have the moon to thank for a lot of things. And even if it wasn't here to begin with, it's still a very powerful part of our world and our being. And the ancients knew that. And the dark forces also knew that. And now, today, there is definitely some funky stuff going on inside the moon and or the backside of the moon that we'll never see. We have no idea. And I do believe there's a lot of AI, a lot of AI. And if you listen to the episode where I talk about the eclipse season from last April and how I was on mission and how the task revolved around removing some of the gray bases from the moon. So some of them were, they're being kicked out now. And I do wish I have more for you guys. I feel like maybe we do a proper episode on the moon and have a longer Q&A so I can actually go into the Akashic and ask some specific questions. I just didn't do that for this one. It was more tuning into what I already know and does this feel right to share? And here we are. So I do believe that it's safe to connect with the moon for anyone who wants to do it with pure intention, obviously not involving sorcery or any form of black magic or harvesting of the energy of the moon. Just be mindful of where your full moon rituals or practices come from, and make sure you're not tuning into the AI and the dark forces and the distortion. But the moon holds a lot of feminine wisdom, and it pays reverence to the cyclical womb nature of women, where her cycles conceive, birth, and rebirth life. And it is a part of who we are. So, unless you're getting the message to just take some space from the moon right now, because it's possible you're working through something, honor that. If you're feeling like you want to pay reverence and connect with the moon and these cycles and be in flow and in tandem with the tides and so on, just doing it from a place of love and really connecting to the organic consciousness of the moon. And one last thing I wanted to share, this came from someone in the group chat, and I thought it was really interesting, and I just wanted to share the theory that she presented. And this is when Lemuria was falling. So she said that much of the unresolved karma that didn't play out on Earth from the fall of Lemuria, which we know was also the fall of the matriarchy and the beginning of the rise of the patriarchy. It was also generally around the time when human and fae began separating worlds. So we know there was a war, a Holocaust. It was pretty gnarly between these two continents, the masculine and the feminine. So some of this unresolved karma basically got stored in the moon for us to potentially play out later. And she brought up this really good point that also probed the question, it makes you wonder how much karma is stored within the planets. And so it makes me think of this story about Saturn, because I know there was once life on Saturn, and I knew that something happened. It was warlike and everyone had to evacuate and leave. And several years later after this, because I also, I have a very deep relationship to Saturn in this lifetime. There's some karmic stuff playing out. And I remember seeing this TikTok of this child under the age of 4 who was remembering a past life on Saturn. And he was telling his mom, and he was like, I had another mommy and daddy and siblings that I can't remember what kind of siblings. And we lived here. And he was pointing to a picture of Saturn. And his mom was like, I never introduced him to the planets. Like, I don't know how he knows this. And he was like, yeah, we had to get on a ship and we had to leave our home and I had to leave my family behind. And I was just like, wow, this is confirmation that there was life on Saturn. And bringing it back to the birth chart, these karmic planets like Mars and Saturn, and the moon, for me at least, because my moon is in Cancer, which Cancer is ruled by the moon. It's in the 8th house at 29 degrees. For any of you astrology people, you get the intensity of that placement. lots of karma stored there for me too. So maybe it does apply to others, right? Like maybe our own karma is stored in these planets, and our birth chart has us directly connect with the energy that is actually our own that we're playing out. And I don't know, maybe there's something to that, but that's all I have for the moon right now. Let's move on. Next question. I'd love to know your daily routine for spiritual hygiene, what you do morning and night, or a day in the life glimpse. Okay. I love this question, but I have my immunity, so I'm not protecting myself like I used to anymore. But I will share what I was doing before that. And what is immunity? So in July of 2023, I had a session, a psychic surgery, because the rashes on my face were so bad. And I said to her, and I feel like I was tearing up at this point and was just like, I don't understand what's happening to me. It's never ending. One thing after the next, attack after attack after attack. Like, I just don't know how much more of this I can take, because I had felt like I really stood tall and faced everything that I needed to for the last 5 years. And I just, yeah, I kind of was just tired, and I wanted to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And she started channeling and said, what I'm working through, what I'm working toward achieving is immunity, meaning I can go anywhere, be around anyone, and be completely safe. So, in other words, no more worrying about entity attacks and attachments and picking up something icky from someone else. Like, I can live my life and do so from a sovereign space where I am protected without having to worry about not only picking anything up, but doing all of these protection practices. And my first thought when she said that was, I'm going to Berlin, because I've been wanting to go there for so long, and I just knew the energies would be really conflicting and a little heavy and a little too much for me. And that's where my mind went. But anyway, she said that I had one chance in this lifetime and it wasn't going to come around again, which haunted me a little bit. And so, but everything that I've been working toward over the last few years unknowingly was leading me to this huge initiation of sovereignty, where no one can harm me anymore. No one can negatively affect me anymore. And it's changed my life. And I remember one time recently, after I did get the immunity, which we all know came from 8/8 and from exposing this cult, and that happened. But I remember one time I had to go into the mall, into the Apple store, and I had this moment of like, oh my gosh, I forgot to put up protection, and remembering just like, oh, I don't need to. I can just live my life and just be human. And so maybe probably some of you are also working toward this, and it's just a reminder that every step you take, every moment you spend clearing and working toward your sovereignty and liberation is not a waste. It's important, and it's leading you to something huge. And I realized that this is really what I'm doing with my clients, is helping them to reach this immunity, this level of their soul evolution where they are sovereign, and there's now this sense of freedom and safety, and I provide this protection for them in the meantime as we do this deep clearing work and move mountains of energy together to bring them closer to this liberation. So, of course, I realized that this immunity didn't mean complete sovereignty, because it's now blocking the attacks or anything from coming in, but you still have to work through what's already there. So I'm not completely sovereign of other people's energy. I still have clearing to do from what was already within. I've made immense progress on this. But now nothing new is coming in, and everything I had to go through to get to this point, I would do it all over again. And by the time this launches, I will have announced this, but I've created a new offering, and it's called an energetic assessment, which goes into great detail to give you an understanding of where you are in the healing, where you are in your soul evolution, the clearing, the purging, the releasing that you've chosen to take on in this lifetime. How close are you to your, own version of immunity? Just giving you something to measure, because sometimes it feels like it's never ending. You get hit with these curveballs, which is absolutely part of it. It's not like it's going to take that away, but to have an idea of the numbers, the percentages of what's there, the karma that is resolved versus unresolved, the stuck emotion in all of the organs, all of the chakras. I mean, we go through everything. The unprocessed trauma, the black magic, the dark force energy, the ancestral trauma, the percentage of unhealed stuff from past lives, the soul retrievals that need to take place, just everything. So you have a benchmark. So as you keep doing the work, 6 months later, a year later, you can go back and compare, okay, where am I now? What have I numerically kind of seeing what I've been able to clear? And I just feel like it's going to be really helpful for some people to just kind of put it on paper. So I will link the show notes if you want to order one of those. So I don't have protection myself and use really these protection tools that I have used all these years leading up to the immunity anymore. But when I did, here's what it looked like. So I worked to build out a shield. And this shield is a temporary form of protection, because ideally your auric field and your energy is on lock. It's not open, it is sealed. And your being, your auric field, your energy body is the shield. But we are leaky, and we've got a lot of karmic cords with a lot of people, and our auric field has holes and tears in it, and it takes a lot to repair that. And it's not able to keep unwanted energies out, or there are parts of us that are actually welcoming them in. So as we do the healing work, naturally our organic shield strengthens. But I do have some protective shields on top of that just make it really, really extra hard for anyone to get in. And so even though I have my immunity, I do still have extra protection in place. And that has taken me years to be able to get it as strong as it is. And I learned pretty easily early on that the shield is only as strong as you are. It's only as strong as your connection to yourself, your higher wisdom, the cosmic realms, the galactic technology that you might have access to. And that's why sometimes you create a shield, but it's not really effective, because you've got all this stuff going on inside, and you're not able to yet create a stronger shield. And that's where you outsource the support and the help. And I think a lot of people also don't know how to properly build one. So I am going to be creating a resource for this soon. It's been on my list of things to do, so stay tuned for that. I think it's going to be something pre-recorded to teach you how to go through the steps to create and maintain it. I am offering, this is to clients that I've been working with, the building out of a shield, one that is very complex, very advanced, using the technology that I have access to. And it takes about 2 weeks to a month to fully build. So it's very complex. And so if you're thinking, hey, I could use that, maybe soon it will go up as an offering to the public, but just message me and we can talk about it. So when I did have to protect, and I would do this daily in the morning before anything else, but I would, and I do this today still, I'd clear whatever I needed to from the dream world, because I have some wacky dreams and I'm moving through a lot, and I'm moving a lot of energy for myself in my dreams. And I'd wake up knowing that and feeling it. So I still every morning clear whatever I need to from the dream world. And at night before bed, I would also clear my energy. I would smudge, realign and reharmonize my light body, allow my nervous system to relax and just surrender my body and let it twitch and move and release any stuck energy that I picked up from the day. I'm still clearing all the time. Again, I'm clearing residual. But even before, I cleared every single day, especially as a practitioner, because I'm responsible for creating a safe and clean, energetic environment for clients. And I see so many healers not clearing themselves or doing it like once in a while. And it's just a mess that they bring into their client sessions, and they feel heavy, and you can see it in their auric field. It's like they're carrying so much weight from other clients, from themselves, etc. And it's like sloppy work, to be honest, when you're not doing this. So whether you're a practitioner or not, because there's a lot of energy floating around all the time, I really recommend at least once a day, just taking even 5-10 minutes. You need more than that, but even if you can do 5-10 minutes to just let go of anything that you might have picked up and just kind of come back into balance and come back into the body. And I do teach workshops on these protection practices, some of these more advanced protection practices. So, maybe I'll do another one. I did one back in October, so maybe it's time. So, in addition, the lifestyle is really important, because you can't have good spiritual hygiene and poor lifestyle choices. It goes hand in hand. So I am doing a lot of things to help keep the energy moving, including yoga and working out and running, dance, which I would consider spiritual hygiene because it helps me move a lot of energy. I spend time with the elements, whether I'm in nature or not in nature. Your food and what you're consuming through your food is huge. Good and restful sleep. Spiritual hygiene is really taking care of your nervous system and making sure that you come back into a calm state of being. Everything just flows easier that way. So it's not always just about the clearing and the protection tools, but it's lifestyle. It's who you surround yourself with, what you consume. It's everything. And you can't have good spiritual hygiene or be a leader in helping others while you're not putting all of this into practice, while you're in a toxic relationship where you're allowing yourself on whatever level that is to be abused by a partner. I see so many women in relationships where they refuse to see the signs and their partner is misogynistic and sexist, and it's a deep rooted pattern in them. And I've separated from a lot of women who are stuck in these relationships where I'm just feeling like this is just not the energy to be around. And so many times they have asked me to host retreats with them or to be part of this and to come on and work with them. And the answer is no, because of their relationship and because they are being psychically attacked and harmed, and their womb is being siphoned from by these men. Because right now it's mostly women. It's all women that have been asking me to participate in these things. So I'm just saying men because of that reason. I'm sure the roles, can be reversed, but that they are yeah, they are really affecting that person, and you cannot, that energy would come into the space because it's in them. So no, do not do this thing with them. And so I've really seen a pattern with this. And these are women that have no kids, no marriage certificate. They're in their 30s. It's a lot easier to leave. I understand that it's not easy to leave some relationships, and that takes time. And that's not what I'm saying. But once you do, whether it's a romantic or platonic relationship, you're going to realize just how much it was affecting you and weighing on you, and probably point to the root of these attacks and these symptoms that you're experiencing. Your protection and shield gets stronger, your connection to source gets stronger, to yourself, all of it. So, yeah, spiritual hygiene, protection, it encompasses everything. And I feel complete there for now. I'm sure we'll keep going on this topic, but let's move on to question 3. Okay. I started watching Lissa Royale's interview and was conscious of an inner observer being watchful of anything that would give away her disposition in the vastness of these galactic narratives. I truly wonder what would be your guidance for any newbie who enters the space of non-human intelligences. How would they develop a discerning eye and not get washed away by colonized or false light scripts? Love that question. So, one thing I will say is that the well-known popular voices for the galactics, the galactic ambassadors, I haven't yet seen someone that I didn't feel like had an element of false light in them. And I feel like for a lot of them, it's because they just haven't done the deeper clearing work yet. And because just like here on Earth, there's, organized chaos, there's also organized chaos on other star systems. And on other star systems, they're all in constant communication with each other. We've all been dealing with the dark forces in this galaxy for quite some time, just like the dark forces have bases here on our solar system. They also have bases on Sirius. They have bases on Orion, on a lot of other star systems as well, where they live with these galactic beings that are also benevolent. So I feel like a lot of these voices for the galactics have definitely had their hand in the distortion and the false light on other star systems, and they haven't fully gone through their process of really understanding that and clearing that. So they also carry an element of that in their blueprint. And I will say, I did read the books by Lissa Royale Holt and Barbara Marciniak. They're 2 channels, Pleiades, Lyra. I have only read Lissa's book. I didn't even know she did interviews. I've honestly been guided away from most of this, and I'll explain why in a minute. But I did trust the work at the time. I read these books back in 2018, so my discernment was definitely different then. But I'm saying that, out of all of the Galactic Ambassadors, those are 2 books that, yeah, I would probably recommend. And, even I feel like even today, yeah, there's a lot of truth to what they're saying. I will say I have been guided away from the work of Robert Edward Grant, Elizabeth April, Bashar, Mateus DeStefano, Debbie Solaris, Elena Denon, trying to think of the woman's name, that Lisa Renee, and I'm sure there's more. I just can't think off the top of my head. But, I'm also sure there's a reason why the answer has been no to consuming and absorbing their work. And I'm just going to leave it at that. So I think it's important to take everything with a grain of salt when you're consuming this content, and hear these stories, but don't attach to them as truth. And for me, my path was actually to form a relationship with several of the benevolent beings, and the Pleiadians, Andromedans, and Arcturians. I do work with them daily, but over the years, and this started in 2018 for me, so it's been 6 years of working with them and understanding them. Sirius, Lyra, the Hyades, Orion, Hydra, Pegasus, Procyon, like so many star systems that I am in tune with and have been exploring over the last few years, where, it started with contact with the Pleiades, and then it really just snowballed from there. And as you guys know, I also read the Galactic astrology. So I've been forming my own relationship with them, because that's how I feel you truly get to know these species. I've been in the Akashic records, receiving more information, and before the Galactic astrology, doing these soul journey and once upon a time starseed readings for people where I'm seeing their actual lifetimes on these other star systems, and I'm looking around and at the nature, the landscape, the way of life, and putting it all together that way. So I'm compiling these real life accounts of life on these star systems over the years. And it's helping me to put together the timeline and understand the way of life over also many years, right? So for example, and I will say too that a lot of it does line up with other stories that are out there, but at the same time, it also contradicts some of the things that are out there. So, which is why I feel like just, take everything with a grain of salt. And over time, as you go deeper, you'll start to form your own, or have your own experiences where you can kind of, compare. But for example, there's this star system called Procyon. I feel like a lot of people don't know it, but a lot of people have lived there per the galactic astrology. And all I knew from the galactic astrology training, which wasn't much because my teacher worked with a galactic channel that I just did not trust at all. Honestly, looking in her eyes was really scary. And I couldn't read her book. I couldn't consume the information. So I had to do a lot of my own research on the star system that I'd never heard about. All I knew was that the star system pretty much strayed a little bit too far from their spirituality and a little bit too much into the science and the more masculine energies. So as I'm tuning into people's lifetimes there, I'm seeing exactly how that happened and what the timeline looked like through these stories and the people that were incarnated before it got too extremely polarized and after, and using the Akashic records to help me understand the way of life on that planet at that time. So yeah, that's kind of how I've been putting all this information together. And so going kind of into the false light of all of this, obviously there are a lot of people just regurgitating information of what's being passed on Google and online by people that aren't actually really tuning into benevolent galactic beings. And again, right, there's so much false light. So that's what they're tuning into and where they're receiving their information. False light is a frequency. So if you really put work into trying to identify what that frequency feels like, looks like, whether it's a feeling, seeing, a knowing, and do the necessary clearing on yourself, you'll catch it every time. And honestly, most of the time for me, it comes through clairaudience, which is one of the, I hear, but I definitely see and I feel more, but I always hear. And I just hear false light, false light, false light. Like I just hear it. And that's how I know. But it also, I do see a color that coincides. And it's like this almost like shiny, metallic, silvery white that really resembles light, but it's not. And one thing I do is to discern if someone is what they say they are, is that I just stare at it and I say, show me your true form, show me your true self. And I stare at this being that is trying to connect or trying to come into the container. And if it holds its form, so if it stays a light being, or if it says it's a light being, you're seeing a light being and it stays a light being when you're asking that and you're staring at it, it's a light being. If you sense even like a speck of black energy, or it morphs into something, or it moves, or even for a split second changes form and comes back, it's not light. It's trying to deceive you, and you caught it because it was shape-shifting. So most of the time, it'll hold its form pretty well, the false light, depending on how advanced it is. But even for one split second, I can see that darkness behind it, and I know. So you can put that into practice. So again, the recommendations to identify this, I feel like, again, look into their eyes, these galactic ambassadors. Do a read on their ego. Where is their ego in all of this? Is it leading the way, or are they truly connected to their heart, sharing this information? Take everything with a grain of salt. I feel that truth always hits differently, right? So using myself as an example, I'm listening to a galactic channeler, reading a book, and my intuition and my whole body reacts where I know this is truth. And even with the Prism of Lyra, Lissa Royale's book, there were things that were said that I didn't really resonate with, but there were things that were said that I really felt like, okay, this was true. And I also get the message when it doesn't feel like truth. So the more embodied you are, the more trusting you are with yourself, your intuition, the cleaner your energy, the easier it will be to discern not only if the channeler is light and pulling information, but what they're saying is truth. And some of these channelers, the problem is that, and why it can be like dangerous, so to speak, is when you open up to receiving this information. The information is coming into your system. The information is coded to serve their narrative. So it's not just necessarily false information. Sometimes the information is true, but it's coded, meaning there's energy attached to it that is now going into your system, and it's distorted and it's kind of reprogramming your body. So it's challenging because I don't want to tell you not to educate yourself at all. And I think it's important to learn about these beings, but at the same time, it really isn't always safe to do so. And yeah, you just have to find those people who are speaking truth and have the best interest for everyone at heart. And I do see a lot of these channelers, they work with the grays. It's one thing I see in common, like they're all connected to the grays. And a lot of them also code their books. So whether it's a channeled book or a website, if anyone is picking up on what I'm trying to say, or a YouTube video. I'm just going to use the example for books. Like my ex-mentor spent like over a year coding her book with distortion, and it's going into the hands and homes of people who don't realize that this book carries all this harmful coding, and it's a portal and creating all these energetic issues. And it's no different with some of these other channeled books as well. You can see it, you can feel it, you can kind of sense it. And you can always tune in if you've been watching these people, like just tune in and ask, like, am I fully protected? Did I pick up something negative from them? Yes or no, muscle test. And if the answer is yes, well, then there's your answer. So of course, I'm always here to help provide confirmation. It's kind of hard for me to talk about these things because I don't want to be pointing fingers, and I don't want to be coming from a place of judgment on what other people are doing. I'm really working on that within myself to just allow everything to be what it is, because it's really hard for me to see people getting swept up into all of this false light, and I can see the harm that is being inflicted, just like it was for me, and what I've had to go through to clear this, and it's just like not worth it. It's better to protect yourself than to be looking for this information and these answers. So I've gotten a lot better in just accepting, like, this is what is happening. You can't save everyone, but I'm trying to come from a place of education of like, hey, this is what I've noticed and this is what I see. And maybe you see it too, and maybe you don't. And it's up to you to decide with this information if you want to continue to work with these people or open yourself up to this or not. Okay, so next question. This is also on the topic of false light. Do you have any advice on to know if you have successfully done that work and aren't operating as a false light being? There's an increase in the false light movement, and I'd like to make sure I'm not in the category. I know sometimes you can be unaware, but it'll be helpful to hold the self accountable and work on whatever is blocking from representing the true sovereign self. So I feel like the fact that you hold a mirror to yourself and are even questioning that and are prepared to hear the truth says a lot and means that either you're not, or if there is false light in the system, you're in the process of dismantling it. Because I think we all have it in our blueprint somewhere. And I feel like most false light practitioners are people that have gotten swept up by the agenda without realizing it. Because again, there are two types, the one who knows their false light and working with dark forces, and the ones that are manipulated and really think that they're doing good. But regardless, I feel like they all have this one thing, or not one thing, but these things in common, which is that they're not really truly grounded and embodied. They lack accountability, right? They don't hold themselves accountable for their actions, for their projections, for their teachings. A lot of them are very ego driven, and again, that love and light only. So I think the best thing that we can do is take a step back and look at what you're learning, teaching, or sharing, and just try to look at it from a different perspective, or kind of like a perspective outside of self a little bit, and ask yourself, like, does this truly resonate with me? Does this information speak to me? Where are these teachings coming from? Who taught them to me? And where did they come from? Do I feel they resonate? Am I passionate? Do they invoke passion? Can I learn more, go deeper? If not, it's time to now start questioning some other things. And the things with the false light teachings, which if you haven't listened, would highly recommend the episode on debunking New Age, because I talk about how New Age teachings are only sharing one piece of a very complex puzzle. And I feel like these teachings are floating in space and can't fully be applied to our lives without missing a very important piece of the message. And so that is something to look at as well. Like, are these teachings rooted in something? And so then the other thing that happens isn't just that these messages that get passed down and these belief systems that get passed down, but let's say you were working with a practitioner who was false light and they've been in your energy body. You've been giving them access. They've been doing work on you, and they've been distorting your energy body. And now you're giving healings where you maybe don't realize it, but you're working with false light because that's what you learned and received. So you think it's source or pure light, and now you're working with clients and transferring that to them and kind of continuing to perpetuate the distortion. So you want to ask yourself, does this apply to me? Is there false light in my field? Am I transferring it to others? Where did this come from? Where did I pick this up? Is it from a teacher, past life, this life, galactic life? This is where the Akashic can come in handy, because all of these answers will come through. And side note, I am teaching Akashic Masterclass Level 1. It begins 9 days from when this launches. So if you want to learn this tool that has been one of the most integral parts of my journey, that has helped me so much with things like this, right? When we're questioning, the Akashic will provide the answers. So again, where I also no longer needed to solely rely on others to access this information. It's been a game changer, a life changer. So if the records has been calling you, regardless, if you want to take it into, your own work as an offering, but even just for yourself to help you navigate your own journey, highly, highly recommend. So if it's calling you, join me. Starts May 29th. But I think it's so beautiful, this question, because it shows integrity and a desire for authenticity. And so many people, including false light practitioners, don't hold themselves accountable, and they won't hold a flashlight up to their shadows. It's always one way to discern them, but also, again, not everyone that won't look at their shadow is false light, but all false light practitioners won't go deep into their shadow. So if you're not afraid to do that, it says something huge about you. And so I feel maybe we're complete for today, and we can maybe end there. Just kind of looking at time. I always like to keep these under an hour just because, and maybe you guys want more. If you do want more, let me know. But I'm always thinking about, timing. So, all right. I am looking forward to my next recording. In the meantime, there's a lot going on. I just wanted to kind of give a couple of updates. And then in August is our Glastonbury Retreat called The Gates of Avalon. I can't wait for this. I'm so excited. Glastonbury is one of my favorite places in the world. The connection to the Magdalens, the dragons, the Fae, Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, it's unmatched. Like, you feel like they are right there with you because they are. So this is going to be a week of play, a week of sisterhood, of community, of activations, of just love and fun and frolicking around the countryside of England, remembering Avalon, because I just feel like the people that are going to be coming on this retreat, we all have known each other in a past life in Avalon, or with the Holy Family, or in a past life in a dragon lineage in some way, shape, or form. And it's going to be really, really beautiful coming together in that way. So all of the information is on my website. On the top bar, you'll see the word retreats. Click on that, read all about the Glastonbury Retreat. And if you feel called, please apply. We, as in myself and Kieran, would love to have you there. Any questions, please email me or DM me with that. So see you guys on the other side. Love you all. Thank you for being here. Again, you can find me laurenonearth.com and Lauren on Earth on Instagram and TikTok. All right. Bye.